I'd like to know your point of view.
Hi everybody, this is Evening Ransom and welcome to Embracing Reality with Evening Ransom. I don't know if I'm going to be able to see people this time, trying it this way or not. We'll see. I come prepared with questions that I pull from the week regardless, so that I have questions to answer either way. So I'm going to go ahead and just start with that, and we'll see what happens. Now, I'm just trying to get distracted because I am a little out of sync with what I can see on this screen. So there's a delay. That's distracting for me. Okie doke. So the first question I have is, why am I pining away? That kind of thing. And what's important to remember is that the narcissist wasn't always evil, and they're still not always evil, even throughout the whole time. There's still times that things were good. If they were always evil, it would be easy, right? They were always evil, it would be super, super easy, you know, but they aren't. And what we're really good at is milking those good times, milking them, remembering them, being very nostalgic about them, forgiving a million sins. We're really good at that. And meanwhile, for them, you're no good anymore at all. Like, once you turn bad, you're all bad, right? So, and that's really painful because, you realize that you may have been devoting tons and tons of energy into this one-day future where they were going to appreciate all this effort that you put in. And that was never going to happen because when they get ready to discard you, you're going to be all bad. I remember actually my ex-husband telling me that, and he didn't do anything like what he did to me to anybody else. But he was never married before. He had only girlfriends before, but I do remember him. So I had amicable breakups with all my boyfriends. I always had amicable breakups, and he didn't have any amicable breakups. They were all, he didn't like anybody that he had broken up with, and he thought that was really normal. He thought that the way that I was very abnormal, and so, of course, in retrospect, I can see why. And so, because he had to make them all bad, and the reason for that is because their number one top priority is being right? And so if they can make, and in their way of thinking, there's always a bad guy, always a good guy, always a villain, always a hero. And so in order for them to be the hero, for them to be right, you have to be the villain, you have to be wrong. So this goes into another thing that I wanted to talk about, which was, why are you explaining to the narcissist? Like, stop explaining to the narcissist. And this is I'm kind of looping around. This goes with another question that I had, and that was about, we try so much to be reasonable. We try to reason with them and say things that reasonable adult people can talk about, and but you have to remember that they just don't think at all like we think, and they have a reality that they're trying to make everything fit into. It's a false reality, of course, but trying to make everything fit into that. And so for them, feelings are what rule everything. And so it's really ironic that they will say things like, you're too sensitive. And if you ever hear anybody saying you're too sensitive, that's a big red flag, because there's a dog here. Nice people don't often have to say things like, don't often have to use humor to back their way out of saying some nasty thing. Okay, so this is live video. Here's my doggy D'Artagnan. Being exposed. They're afraid of being found out. They're afraid of that little voice they have inside their head, that they're awful. They're afraid of that voice being right, so they've created this whole false reality to fight against that voice. And they are busy trying to find people, supply that reinforces their false reality so that they can combat that voice. It's a typical pattern. The typical pattern is that someone will have been raised with one or both narcissistic parents, and they will have been narcissistically abused, however, subtly or not, but it's all they know, you know, so you don't know. That becomes your brand of love. That becomes how you define love. So you don't really know that there's anything wrong with it. So then you go off into your adult life and you think you know what you're doing. And eventually, it may be, you know, maybe a series of relationships, but eventually something happens where you can't go on, or something major has happened. You've had a major breakup, something really devastating. You've been totally gone through the narcissistic cycle and been through a major discard, something really bad's happened. And so like, using myself as an example, I'm a really typical, my story is extreme story, but it's also the typical story. It's the typical scenario of how the cycle goes. So I had narcissistic parents, went off into my regular relationships, and I picked them in my relationships slowly or quickly ratcheted up. I mean, each one was more abusive than the last, until I eventually married a sociopath. He started off being kind of abusive even from the beginning. Maybe not abusive, but neglectful. And neglect was really the norm for me. Really the norm for me. And I had a neglectful relationship right before him. And what had happened is, this is also the typical thing that'll happen, is that there'll be some loss or some rejection or something that you're trying to run from. And this is the one exception to the rule of having been raised in a narcissistic family. The one exception to that will be that there was some major loss right before you met this person. So that can also happen. That could also happen where there will have been a, you know, like someone died, and some like a really major loss, a major shakeup of your life happened just right before you met them. And that's the only exception I've really ever found to it. Even when I started talking to people that don't think that they had narcissistic families, eventually they come to realizing that they did. They come to realizing that this wasn't the first experience they had. There was something from their childhood. It usually traces back to childhood because people who were loved, people who received lots of love and validation and their needs mattered and all of that, those people are going to put up with it. You know, they're certainly going to put up with it. It will seem much more abnormal to them to be abused this way. To someone whose needs have never mattered, and who is used to earning love, earning their place in relationships, feels like they get their validation from being needed. And really, truly, the codependent or the empath who really needs to be needed, wants to, help people and all that stuff, is really, the match made in heaven or hell. Everyone look at it for the narcissist who really wants to take advantage of someone like that, because they get their validation from, having someone cater to them, and if you get your validation from meeting other people's needs and being needed, then that is how you ended up there. But the other thing is, you will have such a high threshold for pain. You'll have a high threshold for pain that other people don't have. The healthy people just don't have. They're not going to tolerate that kind of abuse. To you, it's normal. To you, it feels like home. And the thing of it is that our brain is not so good with this, because we will register what's familiar as right. Our subconscious registers what's familiar as being right, or feeling good, or feeling like chemistry. That feels like we have chemistry. But really, it's just what's familiar. And if you've been abused, what's familiar is not so good. What's familiar is not so good. But, it can take you a while to recognize that. And I know for me in my 20s, I didn't even know how to go about finding someone who was attentive and anything like my husband is now. Didn't know how to do that, and feeling at home in a relationship. And I could not feel at home in a relationship with someone who was really attentive and loving. It would have been very awkward to me. And I have a feeling, I don't know this for sure because I didn't have the experience, but I have a feeling that I would have sabotaged it. I have a feeling that I would have just done something to sabotage it, to prove myself unworthy of it or something like that. That's what I think would happen. But I won't know that because I didn't do that. I got with somebody who was really bad news. But yeah, he didn't have to really do, I mean, the love bombing can maybe not look so much, it can look just like attention, really. It can be attention, and it can be very much you and me against the world, that kind of thing. So it doesn't necessarily have to be that they are treating you so well, so much as they're treating you like, I get you. What it was in my case was that I came right off, I had this rejection of my parents. I had just moved back home after like 6.5 years away, and my parents didn't seem that happy to see me, and that really hurt my feelings. And so I got on this date with this guy, and I kind of confessed and told him about this stuff because I didn't think that I'd really be seeing him again. It's kind of need to get off my chest, and eventually, he just convinced me that, he saw that, and I would never have to worry about not having my emotional needs met. If I was with him, he would always love me, and and he would definitely confirm with me, yeah, your parents are not loving, and they don't treat you very well, and definitely validated all that, and that he would be real different. And so what was in it for me, and this is really the thing that you need to assess for yourself, is what's in it for you, because none of us do things for no reason. You're there for some reason too. And so if you want to stop attracting narcissists, you have to understand what it is in you that is what you're going after. What is it that you want? And typically it is redoing something from your childhood. It is proving to yourself that you are lovable after all, typically. And I know that when I was in such denial when my husband was breaking off and leaving me, because it really did feel like I felt like he was proving, I was married to him, he was proving to my parents, see, I am lovable. He married me and he loves me, and so now he's breaking up with me, and that was like he was proving they were right. You're not lovable, see, It was really, really awful, really a head trip. And, so these are all things that you really need to. The reason I love the name of the show, Embracing Reality, is because truly that was exactly what I went through to get myself well, was that, my life had been utterly destroyed. I mean, really utterly destroyed. I mean, when my whole thing was over with, he had just completely wiped me out, left me with really nothing but 2 traumatized children and a report that said he had antisocial personality disorder and narcissistic personality disorder, and I had complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And that's basically my starting point, and how I started over in my new life was that, that starting point. And I was finally able to, because I had been shown there was really no way for me to, with what basically these narcissists in my life, I got to see what they would do if there was nothing to stop them but their own love or their own compassion or their own, there was no chance that they were going to look bad, no chance they were going to get caught, because they all agreed to do it, right? They all agreed to do it. They all had a way out. They all scapegoated me, was all that. So they were all going to be able to do whatever they wanted to do. And the only thing that would stop them is their own conscience, their own love for me, right? Well, it was brutal because they didn't stop, right? So I got to see over and over and over again just how far they would go if the only thing to stop them was their love for me or their compassion as a person. And they went really, really far. I mean, they went as far as to just basically just, steal or destroy everything in my life. All my relationships, all of my assets, my health, everything. And so, there I was, and I was finally able to. What had really done it was that I was clinging to this. I could not accept that they didn't love me. I just could not accept it. And so I kept blaming myself. I kept believing the things they would say. When they would tell me I was doing something wrong, I would say, okay, I'll go fix it, because that was better than the truth. The truth was they didn't love me. That was absolutely the worst, that was the worst thing that could possibly be, was they didn't love me. And so because I was so wrapped up in that they had to love me, I just made myself vulnerable to everything. I believed everything they said. I, put myself in harm's way over and over again. And the worst part of it was I failed to protect my children. That was the very worst part of it, but I certainly didn't protect myself at all. But by the time it was over, there was just no way left for me to tell myself that there was anything to do with love here. You know, it was so clear that there was no love between my parents and me, and my husband and me, and you know, there was just no love there, or my kids for that matter. There was no way for me to tell myself that anyone who loved my children would do what they were doing or had done. And so that was a terrible day. It was a really terrible day, but it was also the day when everything changed. You know, that was when the corner was turned. And so I call it embracing reality, because the day that I could embrace reality was the day that it started getting better. You know, that was the worst day, but it didn't get any worse than that. That was the day that it started getting better, because once I could embrace reality, I could do something about it. Until that happened, I couldn't do anything about it. You're completely helpless. And so that's the case with you too. If you keep attracting narcissists, you have to figure out what you're doing. Why are you doing that? You know, why are you attracting them? And then, you know, when you have those answers, you're going to be able to do something to help yourself. You know, then you can start working on the solutions. But I would definitely look at your relationship with your parents, and what are you trying to redo there? Is there something you're trying to redo? Trying to get the love you didn't get there? Trying to, maybe, I don't know, if you know, does the person resemble your mother or father? And, yeah, and not so much in their appearance, but in their behavior, in the way that they make you feel, in the way they relate to you. Is there a similar way that they interact with you? And you know, so you know, look at what was familiar to you in childhood, and then see if that has something to do with what you're getting attracted to. For them, for the narcissist, what they're attracted to, it will depend on what kind of narcissist they are. If they're you know, an overt narcissist, they may be into someone who's like a shiny arm piece, you know, someone who's going to make them look good, someone who has certain qualities that they admire, that they want, that they wish they had, things like that. If they're another kind of narcissist or a sociopath, they might be looking for someone who's going to feel sorry for them, who's going to give them lots of sympathy and pity. You know, so it really kind of depends on what kind of a narcissist they are. But either way, it all works out to be the same thing. It's all gonna end up being manipulative, and it's all a relationship of inevitable harm. Narcissists are disasters as parents. Narcissists are just absolutely disastrous parents. There's just no two ways to say it. You know, they're just absolutely disastrous parents. When you think of it, the definition of, you know, what a narcissist is absolutely it's just the polar opposite of what a parent needs to be. You know, narcissists don't want to care about what anybody else's needs are. You know, and a parent is supposed to put the child's needs first. So, you know, if you have narcissistic parents, it is a bad deal. It's really, it's you know, and there's a million ways it can manifest, you know, but whatever way it is, they are not going to be, your needs are not going to be okay. It's not going to be okay for you to have the full range of emotions. It's not going to be okay for you to have the full needs a human being has. You're going to probably only be, you know, some people say that the narcissist parent only wants to hear from them when there's something wrong. They love the drama. They love all that. And that was, I would have always said that's not the way. My parents are just the opposite of that. You can't have anything wrong. But after they scapegoated me, then it seemed like that was the case. It seemed like after they scapegoated me, then once I got, I was like, oh, I'll just prove to them that I'll prove to them that they're wrong, that I'm fine. And they needed to keep me wrong then at that point. But to have me in their life, if I was going to be in their life, I couldn't have anything wrong, because they didn't want to meet my needs. They didn't want me to have any needs. You know, I was supposed to need exactly what they wanted to do. You know, so if they wanted to throw a big wedding, then they wanted me to need that. You know, attend a grandchild's sports games or whatever, something, then, you know, I needed to have children that played sports and invite them along. You know what I mean? But if I was sick, I needed help, if I needed anything like that, that wasn't what they were into. Narcissists, they're just, completely self-absorbed. And again, that is also a relationship of inevitable harm. And it doesn't seem like, I'm really interested to watch Donald Trump with his kids, because he seems to have a relationship with them now. I'm going to watch for how those relationships go in terms of the long term, because I will be really surprised if at the end of the day, when he's an old man, if by then all those kids are still in contact with him. Because it seems like, every time the relationships blow up. And as they get older, of course, we know they get worse. And, there's different phases, it seems like, where they get worse. I noticed my parents got especially bad when their parents died. What caused it? There's a lot of debate about what causes it, and I'm really not convinced based on my experiences. I'm not convinced that it is as much about that they're completely abused. This is purely based on my experience and my opinion, but I haven't seen any compelling evidence to the contrary. It seems to me that what is based on every single case I know of, including all of my own personal cases, that the thing that seems the most common about them is there seems to be some commonalities, and that is that they might have, they probably had low boundaries and not very many rules as a kid, either a really passive or a absent. They didn't have a lot of rules and regulations, a lot of that kind of, sort of a permissive parenting, and an absent father, it seems to me, and like a doting opposite sex parent. So like a doting mother, like a little boy that could do no wrong, her hero and all that kind of stuff, but also given too much, it's kind of emotional incest, given too much adult information, really not a safe environment, like kind of expected to take care of himself and that kind of thing. This is just like an inconsistent kind of thing, where it was just this was a really reliable parents, and also where they really sort of figured out early on that they were the most competent person in their world, that there really wasn't anyone, any adult in their life that they really felt had it together, that whose opinion that they really respected or anything like that. And so this opposite sex parent will be doting on them, telling them that how great they are, but they don't really value their opinion that much. They think that they don't know what they're talking about. So they know that, and so they'll take advantage of this doting parent, but they don't really believe them. This is the typical pattern I've seen. But generally speaking, they have grown up without rules, and they don't want authority, but they are also at the same time given too much adult responsibilities, taking care of their emotionally immature mother, who confides too much in her son, wants her son to be the little man, and that kind of thing. Really bad. Really, really bad. I'm going to break it off here. I'm going to stop here. I'll keep working on it. All right, you guys, thanks so much. I will talk with you later. Bye-bye.